Imagine it's 2026 and you're someone who has never touched Linux before. You've heard people talk about it for years, maybe seen programmers using it in videos, or read articles that say Linux is the operating system of the future, but also the one that only tech-savvy people can use. You might be asking yourself, can I, as a complete beginner, actually use Linux today? The answer is more nuanced than a simple yes or no, and it's worth exploring why. Over the last decade, Linux has undergone a significant transformation. What once required memorizing commands, troubleshooting dependencies, and wrestling with arcane terminal outputs has now become surprisingly approachable, even for someone who has only used Windows or Mac. In 2026, Linux isn't just for programmers or IT professionals. Anymore, it has become a viable option for beginners, students, hobbyists, and even casual users. The journey of Linux becoming beginner-friendly has been gradual but deliberate. Historically, Linux was seen as complex and intimidating. In the early 2000s and even up to the mid-2010s, using Linux required a lot of patience, technical know-how, and willingness to read extensive documentation. Installing software often meant opening a terminal, adding repositories, resolving dependency errors, and sometimes compiling code from scratch. For someone who simply wanted to browse the web, write documents, or watch videos, this barrier was enough to keep most people away. Fast forward to 2026, and the story is dramatically different. Modern Linux distributions such as Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Pop_OS, and Fedora have created user experiences that rival Windows and Mac OS in ease of use. They offer graphical interfaces that are polished, intuitive, and designed to guide users through tasks that were previously command-line nightmares. Today, a complete beginner can install Linux with minimal effort, thanks to graphical installers that walk the user step by step. These installers handle disk partitioning automatically, provide pre-configured drivers for most hardware, and even offer options to install essential software during the setup process. After installation, a beginner is greeted by an operating system that looks and feels familiar, but is built on the stability and security of Linux. The desktop environments of 2026 are not only visually appealing, but also highly functional. Whether it's GNOME, KDE, Plasma, or Cinnamon, these interfaces prioritize user accessibility. Settings are easy to navigate, updates happen seamlessly in the background, and software installation can be done with a few clicks through app stores rather than typing terminal commands. The Linux app ecosystem has also matured to the point where beginners rarely need to touch the command line for everyday tasks. Office suites, web browsers, email clients, media players, and even lightweight creative software are readily available. Most of the mainstream applications that people rely on, like Zoom, Slack, Spotify, and even some Adobe alternatives, now have native Linux versions or work flawlessly through compatibility layers. For someone who is worried that Linux is only for techies, this is a huge shift. One of the biggest concerns for beginners has always been compatibility. Will my hardware work? Will my printer, graphics card, or Wi-Fi adapter function correctly? In 2026, hardware support on Linux has vastly improved. Kernel updates are more frequent and better optimized, and most modern laptops and desktops are fully supported out of the box. Manufacturers are even increasingly providing Linux drivers directly, acknowledging the growing user base that prefers an open-source operating system. This means that a beginner can set up Linux on a laptop without having to Google cryptic forum posts about Wi-Fi not working on Ubuntu or touchpad issues on Linux. Another major breakthrough for beginners is the shift in Linux documentation and community support. The Linux community, once notorious for being technical and sometimes intimidating, has become more welcoming and beginner. Tutorials, forums, and YouTube channels now target users who have never touched Linux before, offering step-by-step guidance, visuals, and even video walkthroughs of tasks like installing software, managing files, and configuring peripherals. Additionally, AI-driven assistants integrated into modern Linux desktops can help beginners troubleshoot issues without leaving the system, guiding them through solutions in plain language rather than requiring knowledge of command line syntax. The concept of the terminal itself has evolved. While it remains a powerful tool for those who want to dive deep, beginners in 2026 rarely need it. Modern Linux distros often offer graphical alternatives for tasks that used to require terminal commands. Package managers, which historically were intimidating because of their syntax and error messages, now have full graphical. Updating software is as simple as clicking an Update All button, and installing new applications can be done via drag and drop or searching in the App Store. That said, Linux hasn't abandoned its power user roots. For beginners, This means there's a gentle learning curve that grows with the user. Someone who starts with the basics can gradually explore more advanced features, such as terminal commands, scripting, and system customization, without ever feeling forced to use them initially. This layered learning approach makes Linux not only beginner-friendly, but also scalable for future skill growth. One area where beginners might still face challenges is gaming. While Linux gaming has improved significantly, thanks to tools like Proton, which allows Windows games to run on Linux, there are still some titles that are better supported on Windows. However, by 2026, the gap has narrowed dramatically. Many popular games run natively on Linux, and the performance of those running through compatibility layers is nearly indistinguishable from Windows in most cases. For someone who wants Linux primarily for productivity, learning, or even general entertainment, gaming is no longer a major barrier. Security is another advantage for beginners on Linux. The operating system's architecture inherently reduces risks from viruses and malware. Updates are frequent, and permissions are managed in a way that prevents accidental system-wide changes. For someone new to computing or concerned about safety, this offers peace of mind without needing to install third-party antivirus software or constantly monitor for threats. One of the most significant developments for beginners is the integration of cloud and virtualization technologies directly into Linux desktops. In 2026, a new Linux user can run Windows or macOS applications in virtualized environments without leaving Linux, thanks to optimized virtualization tools and cloud streaming services. This means that even if there's a very specific application that only works on another OS, a beginner isn't blocked from using Linux as their primary system. Education and learning have also become much more beginner-centered. Schools and online courses now offer structured programs that teach Linux from day one, emphasizing practical skills rather than theoretical knowledge. This exposure means that someone entering the computing world in 2026 is far more likely to start with Linux comfortably than a decade ago. Of course, adopting Linux as a complete beginner still requires a mindset shift. There's a learning curve, and certain tasks may feel unfamiliar at first. File system structures, permissions, and system settings are not identical to Windows or Mac OS, and habits formed on other platforms may need adjustment. However, these differences are now more intuitive and documented than ever, so a beginner who is patient and curious can overcome them quickly. The experience of a beginner using Linux in 2026 is also shaped by community and ecosystem. Online communities are vibrant and welcoming, with spaces dedicated to new users who need guidance without judgment. Forums, Discord servers, Reddit communities, and even AI-powered help desks provide instant assistance. Users can share screenshots, videos, or system logs, and receive step-by-step guidance in plain language. For someone who was previously intimidated by the idea of asking silly questions in a tech forum, this supportive environment is invaluable. Another factor making Linux beginner-friendly in 2026 is interoperability. Modern Linux distributions support a wide range of file formats, cloud services, and hardware devices without requiring additional configuration. USB drives, external hard drives, smartphones, cameras, and even smart home devices can be connected and used seamlessly. Cloud services like Google Drive, OneDrive, and Dropbox have native clients or fully compatible web applications, allowing beginners to continue using familiar workflows while benefiting from Linux's performance and stability. Cost is another major consideration for beginners. Linux remains free and open source, which removes a financial barrier that might prevent someone from experimenting with a new operating system. Unlike Windows or Mac OS, there's no need to pay for a license, and most software needed for day-to-day tasks is also free. For a student or someone exploring computing for the first time, this makes Linux an accessible and attractive option. By 2026, Linux has effectively bridged the gap between usability and technical capability. A complete beginner can now install the OS in less than 30 minutes, perform daily tasks without touching the terminal, and gradually explore advanced features at their own pace. The fear of breaking the system is largely mitigated by modern safeguards, automatic backups, and recovery tools that are user-friendly. Even system customization, which once required deep technical knowledge, is now accessible through graphical tools that allow a beginner to adjust themes, layouts, and settings to their liking. In conclusion, can a complete beginner use Linux in 2026? Absolutely. The barriers that once made Linux intimidating for new users have been systematically removed. Modern distributions, polished desktop environments, improved hardware support, beginner-focused documentation, and supportive communities have transformed Linux into an accessible and powerful operating system suitable for anyone. A beginner doesn't need to be a programmer, IT professional, or computer expert to get started. They simply need curiosity, a willingness to explore, and the understanding that learning a new operating system is a step-by-step process. In 2026, Linux isn't just for experts, it's for everyone. Its combination of stability, security, and flexibility makes it not only usable for beginners, but also a platform that grows with them, allowing them to transition from basic tasks to advanced computing without ever hitting a hard ceiling. The vision of Linux becoming approachable, practical, and friendly for beginners has finally been realized, making it a viable alternative to Windows and Mac OS for anyone ready to take that first step. For a complete beginner in 2026, using Linux is an intimidating challenge. It's an opportunity to explore, learn, and grow in a computing environment that is both powerful and accessible. The journey may start with simple tasks like browsing the web or writing documents, but it can quickly expand to include coding, multimedia creation, gaming, and even system administration, all from a platform that is increasingly designed with the beginner in mind. So if you're considering trying Linux for the first time, 2026 is arguably the best year yet. The operating system is ready, the tools are friendly, and the community is welcoming. All that's left is to take the leap and experience for yourself what Linux can offer, a world of possibilities that is no longer reserved for experts, but open to anyone willing to explore it.